Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scott Hagnes. This is the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. I almost blew it. Scott, how goes it?
It goes pretty good.
I just got up from a 10-minute little cat nap, and I guess I got to get my wits back about me. I was up early this morning meeting with a personal training client who showed up about an hour after. Yeah, so.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yep, but it is what it is, and just working these new types of dealios, and just trying to do a little bit more personal training, and increase the rates a little bit. So obviously those sources of income are you get a little bit more wiggle room in my book, but I got to lay down the law at some point here.
Right, especially on those early morning sessions. If it's the middle of the day and you were going to be there anyway and whatever, not quite so bad. But if you're getting up early to come in, that's just
no, it's not going to happen. Nope. You let me know 24 hours prior. Yeah, probably what you roll with, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's not like it's. For me, I live about 7 minutes from the gym, but for you got a good 25-minute commute to get in here, right? Maybe even longer.
No, it's around 20.
Yeah.
Early in the morning it'd be, I think it's like 18 or something.
Oh, okay,
but that's still, if getting up that early, and that means I went to bed early, missed potentially some family time or something. There's a lot of things go into coming in extra early for a client.
Yep, you better make it worth it.
Yeah.
So this last weekend, Scott, we had a sanctional event. It was the Mid-Atlantic Challenge. So I wanted to kind of maybe go through some of the events with you, because I just thought it was a interesting group of testing for both the men and women, and some workouts that might make you scratch your head, but others where you go, oh man, this is actually some serious, metabolic work, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the workout started off Friday, 3 rounds of hang squat snatches and 10 bar facing burpees at 185, right into 10 dumbbell power snatches, double dumbbell power snatches, 50 pounds per hand, 20 pull-ups, 3 rounds there, and then 3 rounds of 15 box jump overs and 30 wall ball shots. That's just starting off your weekend.
Not starting it off right.
Yeah, you got that right, man. Holy moly.
Wow.
And then it went into Saturday, which was workout 2. They did a 1 rep max snatch into a 1 rep max clean and jerk, 6 minutes and then 6 minutes. For that, they weighted, they did 50 points for the snatch, 50 points for the clean and jerk, and then 100 points for the total. So it was hugely weighted, obviously, for this strength event, because it was 200 points for basically the stronger guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next event was a 2K ski into Grace. That was the nasty one that kind of goes, oh baby, I kind of feel the bile kicking up in my mouth.
Oh, ouch.
And then that last event on Saturday was 27, 21, 15, 9 dumbbell squat cleans, toes to bar, 100 double unders between rounds, and the dumbbell squat cleans with 50 pounds per hand.
Spicy.
That is a spicy meatball. So that was Saturday. 3 events on Saturday.
Brutal.
Sunday, 10 rounds, 4 burpee box jump overs, 1 rope climb. Oh, by wearing a vest the entire time.
Oh, not legless climbs.
I don't believe so. They were just standard rope climbs.
Yeah, it was still with the vest and 10.
Yep, with the vest and those burpee box jump overs. And then the next event was a 10-minute max calorie assault bike. Rest 1 minute, 4 sets for time. 400-meter assault runner. And then a sandbag carry, 200-pound sandbag carry to like a point. So it was just basically kind of like a biathlon style of, run, carry a heavy sandbag, run, carry a heavy sandbag, etc.
Right after you did.
Right after a 10-minute max calorie assault bike.
Oh, I think my lactate levels just went up just hearing that.
And then we finish it off with 3 rounds for time. 9 ring muscle ups, and then after each set of ring muscle ups, a set of snatches, 5 snatches at 205, 9 ring muscle ups, 3 snatches at 225, 9 ring muscle ups, 1 snatch at 245. And that
For a little
finished.
more snatching because there wasn't enough on Saturday.
Jeez, yeah, right.
Well, wait a minute. All 3 days had snatches, right? Because wasn't Friday you started with the burpees and burpees over bar and snatches?
Yep, hang squat snatch on
Uh,
Friday.
yeah.
Then a max snatch.
Max snatch.
Dumbbell
snatch.
There was dumbbell snatch as well on,
Friday, maybe?
Snatch-tastic, man. Yes, Friday,
Wow.
I think there was double dumbbell power snatch. So it's hang squat snatch, dumbbell power snatch, max snatch, and then on day 3, squat snatches to finish it. So I guess this is the I don't even know what to say. But
Mega Amanda.
Mega Amanda. Yes, they call that Amanda 2.0. But
yeah.
We had a training think tank guy almost pull it out. Will Morad was winning it for a bit, and he ended up finishing third. But a gentleman by the name of John Paul Hethcock won it for the men, and then Megan Reardon out of CrossFit Queens won it for the ladies. So, I think this is actually a pretty cool one, just because it's not one that is so well known like Dubai or Wadapalooza, where you're getting some relatively unknown CrossFitters, but along with it, they had an RX and a scaled divisions as well, so they kind of support this competition with some of the local CrossFitters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
it's sort of a way with it feels like, from the sound of it, a very regionals-like event in some ways, but with the participation ability for normal-ish, semi-normal folks at least.
Yeah, exactly. And then so coming up now, we have CrossFit Italian Showdown. That's in April as well. Then in May, there's a few, and then we have the big one that finishes out the year, aside from the Granite Games, is going to be the Rogue Invitational, which they're doing I think they just finished up the qualifying for it, or just finishing up the qualifying for that. So that one's in Ohio.
Yeah. When's the date of that one?
That one's May 18th and 19th. So that should be an interesting one. That's a top prize of $50,000 on that one.
Ooh.
So definitely, Fraser's there, Vellner there, Hoberg, Goodmanson, Noah Olson's going to be there. So that's, and they're bringing out all the stars for that one. So it's, in some ways, it's like, what's the point of doing the CrossFit Games?
Yeah. It'd be interesting if those actually start being minimized a little bit, like, in spite of all this, right? Some of these other events overshadow it almost.
Yep. And the cool thing about that also is they're doing something called a Legends event, where they've invited a bunch of male and female competitors from quote unquote like the OG CrossFitters. For instance, the males, Jason Kalipa, Miko Salo, Tommy Hackenbrook, Josh Everett, Chris Spieler, Graham Holmberg, Matt Chan, Dan Bailey. And then on the females, you had Tanya Wagner, Sam Briggs, Annie Sakamoto, Julie Fouché, Becca Voigt, and Kristen Clever. So they'll be doing that. And then they also have a teams as well. Rich Froning's team and some other really, really good teams that are going to be competing there too. So it's definitely CrossFit Games-esque. It just happens to be in Ohio.
Yeah. Wow. That'll be a good one to watch. Hopefully it's easy to
that one I'm
tune
actually
in on that
interested in tuning into that. And I think it'd be pretty cool to see, because like when we're at the CrossFit Games, there's like these games type events where you don't really know how some of these athletes would do in like a regional style events. You know what I mean? But going head to head, that is. So, all these regions are always broken up. It's almost like the best of the best are now doing regionals together. So it's definitely a different flavor to it. If we thought about some of the workouts that we just looked at, those are profoundly different than what you would see at the games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No paddle boarding, No obstacle courses.
Yeah, no pigs and
Yep.
all those sorts of things.
Yep. So it'll be really interesting to see what the quality of work is, or the competitiveness of some of these athletes. Because I know some of these athletes are like regionals all stars, and then they get to the games. It's just not the same ball game for them.
It's different. Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Or I wonder if they'll maybe the games will look somewhat different this year too.
It's a
You
good
never
point.
know. Also, you could see an absence of those things potentially. I'm guessing not, but always a possible curveball.
Yep. Absolutely. Um, you know, I also, this weekend, and I think a lot of people were aware of this, was, a little off fitness, but it lends me to a pretty cool idea. So Tiger Woods won the Masters again, and I don't know if you were aware of that, but unless you were underneath a rock,
Oh yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah, yeah. I watched. I didn't see on the weekend a whole lot. I just
uh-huh.
watched some of the earlier rounds, and
Yep.
I've always kept my eye a little bit on pro golf.
Yeah. So I believe so. Tiger's 43 at this point.
Hmm.
Um, so looking up in terms of his major wins now, I think he's at 13 or 14, and I believe Jack was at 18. So, you know,
I think this one gave him 15.
15.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, major wins. They updated it. 15, correct. And then
Yeah, so he's got three
three to
to
catch
catch him.
Jack. So he's 43. He looked great. His fitness looked great. Um, what do you think about the comeback of Tiger Woods there, Scott?
That's pretty epic. I mean, because I remember, I remember watching him, from right when he first came up, and I always was kind of hoping that he would return in some capacity, but I really, especially a few years ago, he was so broken, like not even able to function on a normal human level, much less an elite athlete level.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's not happening, and so that it actually did. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can imagine the amount of work for rehab and regaining his skills that he must have put in. So, pretty damn impressive.
Yep. And funny enough, also, obviously, Tiger's achievement is unbelievable. Uh, I just found it awesome that the number of people who were really behind him that weekend
Mm-hmm.
at the course, and there's nothing like cheering for Tiger Woods, and the crowds for Tiger Woods, are second to none. So I just feel it's a pretty cool comeback story. I know we are in this,
Oh yeah.
we talk about fitness and stuff like that here, but just to see in any sport a comeback like this, because his last win, uh, major win, was in 2008. So could you imagine any other sport where you take 11 years between wins at that level?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's
it's a
yeah.
good answer. And by the
Yeah,
way,
it's
he's also,
amazing. And
yeah,
and I mean it's possible there will be more. I mean, he was
absolutely.
quite close last summer at one of the majors. I
Yes, he
forget if it
was.
was the PGA Championship or the
Yep, that
so
was it.
so you never know.
Yeah, and the other cool thing that was talked about was Molinari, the Italian, who I believe he ended up finishing, somewhere around the top. I know he had a bit of a fall off, but he was talking about how, and the Postural Restoration Institute actually mentioned this, how his trainer has him blowing up balloons, etc., and to get his rib cage back in because he doesn't. It takes the pressure off his back and yada yada yada. Did you happen to catch that?
Oh, I didn't catch that part. No.
Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah. The Postural Restoration Institute posted it on their Instagram, but it's pretty cool to see something like this starting to hit the mainstream, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes. I think PRI has been in the golf world to some degree
Yep.
fairly early on. There was a coach I had here for a while working with me, the other Scott, and he came to us. He was a golf pro, and originally from the East Coast, and he was the one with the very first place I ever heard about PRI, and he had been to courses and did some elements of it with a golfer.
Yep.
This would have been in the early, like maybe 2010, 11, 12 era, before PRI got nearly so well known in the strength and conditioning community. So it has been around to some degree, but it's nice that it's getting more traction there.
Yeah, and obviously they stepped up their efforts on their social media and that kind of stuff. But I agree that because there's not a huge weight training type emphasis in golf in general. I think these types of athletes are probably a little bit more open to looking at things like stability work, and the TPI has always been kind of in this mindset, but to actually see somebody be mentioning this, it's actually a really, really cool thing, and helps somewhat legitimize the concepts that we base some of our training on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's work, if people see it works at that level for that sort of thing.
Yes.
Then they start to, oh, okay, maybe my trainer isn't just
making me do weird things and videotaping it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was funny because I believe he was actually talking to Jason Day because he was having some back problems about it. And Jason Day was like, hey, man, if blowing up balloons will help me relieve my back pain, I'll do it.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
Very cool stuff. I've been working more, like I said, with some personal training clients and, some of the older populations. It makes it challenging to even getting up and down from the floor, you know what I mean? So, have you had any issues with some of the older clientele, Scott, of like being able to kind of figure out certain ways of doing basic things? Like, I mean, for one of my clients, like who I legit restrict off the floor is just like finding ways to get her engaged. Like I'll put benches together and that kind of stuff. Do you have any like little hacks that you use for those who are limited coming on and off the ground, Scott?
I have not had a client that was starting out that far back that getting up and down from the ground was an issue. This was interesting. So we may have talked about this a little bit in the past, but when my wife decided to return to coaching, she's working at a large gym out in the suburbs near where we live and where our kids' school is. So she very quickly realized at this facility as she was getting personal training clients that it was a whole different ballgame than there ever was working here at this gym or various other CrossFit-like gyms she'd been a part of, because the people were all largely exactly like what you're talking about right there. Like getting to or off of the floor is a serious concern, or not even barely possible. And regressing things beyond what we probably ever are even used to regressing. For a future episode, I could certainly talk to her a little bit and see some of the things that she does. But I do know that one of the very first things that she tries to do is get people competent in that, because it's probably one of the most important things. At some point, you're going to fall.
Yeah.
If you can't get up. I mean, one of my clients here has recently been he's becoming a firefighter, so he's been doing all these. He's going out on ambulances, and he's always talking about how often that they have to go rescue people that just fell off the toilet or something. They couldn't get up, and have to call up the fire department and the ambulance for these sorts of things. So it's like probably one of the most powerful things you can do for someone, if that's as far back as they are.
Right.
Jeez. Whether it's learning to use other implements, getting the stability, the basic function to get at least some method of getting yourself up.
Yeah. How scary is that? I mean, we overlook that, and we take it for granted. How we don't really have to worry about that. But I was thinking about that today as I was watching one of my clients who's dealt with back issues in the past and very, very undeveloped in their posterior chain, and this is their second session with them. And they're like, yeah, like he was physically like, hey, I'm having a hard time getting up off the ground, and I'm like, obviously right there to help him. But it was almost like an aha moment for him, because he had been he's 57. working back into it. He's been smoking for forever. And it might have been like an aha moment for him. And, you can't bullshit your way around this. Like, it's just going to slap you in the face.
Yeah. Wow, that's way too young.
Yeah,
I know
right?
my wife told the story of one of the people she was starting with. They were just doing some basic, I don't know, some pressing, some
Yep.
basic stuff on a bench. And the guy kind of stayed on the bench and he was too embarrassed to tell her that he
Wow.
was incapable of getting himself back up vertical after laying down on the bench. And so that became, like, okay, I would not have, I think because this world that you and I and probably virtually anybody that would listen to this is in, we're really a subset of the population here.
Yeah.
We're a small subset of it. I know. I forget all the time about things that are a real issue for people um, like that. And so if you have a chance to affect some of that, it's, can be a lot more important than, 10 more pounds on a snatch or something.
Yeah, right. It's there's levels to this game a bit.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my girlfriend is working for a company now called Abbott. They're a pharmaceutical and medical device company, and one of the things that they actually specialize in is uh, interstitial blood sugar management or tracking. So instead of
Mm.
they have a sensor that you can put underneath your arm, and then it links directly to your smartphone.
Oh, wow. So it's able to use some sort of non-invasive.
Yep. So obviously it's not blood sugar because it's not in your blood. It's interstitial. So there's
Yeah.
about a 5 minute delay. So say if a blood sugar tracking would do it at the 0 mark, 5 minutes later it would hit your interstitial to fluid tissues to measure your blood sugar. But
Wow.
it's really
That's
cool
still
because the
pretty,
sensor you could
yeah.
keep in your arm for 2 weeks, and literally every time you put the device to your arm, you could just see what your blood sugar is at. And they use this for obviously, refining medications and what they're actually doing for people. But I could see definitely some implications for those in more relatively healthy populations of how certain foods, certain stressors might affect the body. And I would love to see, obviously, this would be down the line, and obviously, cost would be a factor here. But being able to track hormonal things in real time, such as cortisol, testosterone, and see what effects workouts have, and I can't imagine what the value of that would be for someone who's training and being like, okay, I'm about to do a training session. What's my blood sugar at? Oh, or what's my cortisol at? Oh, can't train, or can train, or whatever. Like, how much
Right.
better would that be than an HRV?
Oh, I know. That was the same thing I was just thinking is like, man, can you imagine? Or you just watch your session and once the cortisol starts coming up too much, then that's the time to shut it down. And
Yeah, in a workout, right?
yeah, and getting right at the dose, but not over, Whew, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised eventually. Um, we do see some method of doing something like that.
Right? I mean, it has to be down the line. There has to be. The thing is like anything like that, there has to be a large population to make it worth to streamline it.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So, you know, uh, I think it'll probably start maybe in the private sector with like some high level athletes first, and then
Mm.
maybe there'll be some kind of device that'll eventually be something that would be used in more of an at home setting, similar to like how they had the Tendo for bar
Mm-hmm.
acceleration, and now they
Yeah.
have like a very condensed form of that
Now you have like the
now.
push and things that are much less
Exactly.
expensive. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah,
would.
a lot of this is like that, right? HRV tracking at one point was only in very high end or sports and things, and then now anybody can do it with a finger sensor and a smartphone.
Yep, really interested in real time to see because I've done some blood sugar tracking before, but obviously the thing that they're really pushing is that like you get 5 points if you just do your finger prick. But imagine you had a complete graph, and then what it also does is it pulls out outliers, and then it also tracks it when you're sleeping too. So for those of individuals who have restless sleep or are dealing with, issues, of hypoglycemia, they can kind of track that as they're sleeping and see what they can do prior to going to bed to try and manage that. The other cool thing is that I've been kind of dabbling with a little bit of fasting. I don't know why it really came up, but I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. But I'm basically stopping eating around 5:30, 6 o'clock every night. And then I'll fast till about 8 to 9 o'clock the next morning. So not a full 16-hour. But I have found that in the morning, I'm not nearly as bloated. And kind of like, I feel that if I am eating so close to bed, that I'm kind of digesting food through the night. Again, we've talked about before how we really don't want to, that's the kind of the time for the gut to kind of calm down a little bit. But there's a bit of an adjustment period for me, but I feel like my appetite is much more under control. Like I feel like I'm not nearly as ravenous now. Like my body's like, okay, it's time for me to stop eating. There's a psychological component, which again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is to kind of see, am I hungry or am I habitually eating? So I'm going to run with this for a little while and see how it goes. But I'm trying to get relatively the same amount of calories I was in as I was doing it without the fasting. But I feel like I just kind of don't need it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've probably dealt with a bit of intermittent fasting, right, Scott? Have you tried it legit? Or?
Yeah. I mean, back in the day,
Yep.
I was an OG faster way before it became popular and cool. I intermittently fasted from sometime in 2004 until 2010. So I probably fasted more days than not in a 6-year span at one point in my life, playing with all kinds of different levels of it and whatnot.
Did you
Not really a fan anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I ran on adrenaline and, made myself freezing cold. And, of course, it was paired with too few calories, very low carb most of the time, just a mess if you're trying to do functional fitness training and work hard.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think, in some cases it could be useful times as long as the person is healthy and, already resilient enough. I think the problem is when people think it's the grand thing to weight loss. And yes, while you may get some initial improvement in a few things, I think it makes the underlying issue of chronic undernutrition worse over time. And
You're absolutely right.
It's really the thing I found that was really quite hard to eat enough, especially now. I was trying to, your window sounds, fairly reasonable there, where I was often trying to squish it down to 6 hours and even 4 hours. And then I'm trying to eat a full day's worth of, food, which was a lot of heavy fatty meats and fibrous vegetables in that time. And, I was ravenous. You'd eat your first meal, you get hungry again almost immediately, you down that. Then you'd still be sort of hungry, but you'd have, your window's going to close, and you'd have one more meal still to get in. And I would just ridiculous bloating and, that third meal jammed in there. The first one probably was barely half digested at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so I'll run with this for a little bit and just be honest with myself in terms of like how I actually feel and if I can get enough calories in. But like, for breakfast, I'm usually doing, like right now, I'm doing like the equivalent of about eight eggs or something like that, and then 2 strips of bacon, and then I do the cream of rice that you've turned me on to. I'll do so basically 2 servings of that, so about 80 grams to 100 grams of carbs there, along with berries and like a little bit of a touch of maple syrup. So probably about 100 grams protein, 100 grams carbs for breakfast, and then I'm doing like sausages or meat or something like that, roughly about 12 ounces to 16 ounces of meat in the next meal with, again, about 100 grams of carbs. So if I total it up, it's probably about 200 grams of carbs, 200 grams of protein, and then obviously fat sprinkled in there, which pretty much is what I need. But it's the idea, more of what I'm turned on by is the idea that like my body gets to kind of calm down when it comes to like the digesting. And I feel like if I'm constantly eating and constantly snacking, my body really never has a time to be like, okay, now I can reserve energy and reserve resources to not digesting food. So I'll run with it for a little bit. If I start dying, I'll let you know.
All right. Yeah, it'll be a good point to check back in after a few weeks, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good idea. So sometime in May, I'll update everybody. But Scott, you got anything else for today?
No. Speaking of food, I'm overdue for my next meal.
There we go. Okay, Scotty, if we need to get a hold of you, how can we?
You can get me at scott@crossfitportland.com.
And you get me at Sean. I'm Sean LaFlock. You can get me at Sean at CrossFitDarbyBeach.com. Scott, talk to you next week, buddy.
All right, we'll talk to you then.
All right, bye.
All right.